You may have spent a large part of your life explaining how you think, why you need time, why certain things affect you deeply, why you move at a different pace. Often, this explaining did not come from a desire to be understood. It came from a desire to prevent misunderstanding. You may have learned early on that your inner world did not translate easily, that what felt obvious or necessary to you required context for others. So you began to add that context yourself. Over time, explaining can become automatic, a reflex, a way of smoothing interactions before friction appears. You explain before questions are asked. You clarify before doubt arises. You justify before criticism is voiced. This habit can feel protective, but it can also become tiring. You may notice how often you are translating yourself into simpler terms, reducing nuance, skipping layers, leaving parts of your experience unspoken because they feel difficult to convey. Not everyone needs explanations, and not everyone will understand them, even when you offer them carefully. This can create a quiet tension, as if your presence always comes with footnotes, as if being yourself requires constant clarification. It does not. Understanding is not something you owe. Some people will never fully grasp how you experience the world, not because you fail to explain, but because their frame of reference is different. That difference does not invalidate your experience. You are allowed to keep parts of yourself unspoken, to answer briefly, to say, "I don't know," without elaboration, to let silence exist without filling it. Silence is not avoidance. It can be a boundary. You may have learned to explain in order to stay safe, to prevent being labeled as difficult, distant, or strange, to ensure that your needs did not disrupt others. That strategy may have served you once, but it does not need to govern you forever. You are not responsible for managing how others interpret you. You are responsible for staying connected to yourself. There may be moments when you choose to explain, when curiosity flows both ways, when your words feel welcomed rather than tolerated. In those moments, explanation can be connection, but explanation should be a choice, not an obligation. You do not need to make yourself understandable to everyone. You do not need to compress your inner world so it fits more easily into conversation. Your experience is already real, even when it remains unnamed. There may be situations where you notice the urge to justify yourself rising, to defend your pace, your decisions, your need for space. You can pause there. You can notice that urge without acting on it. Nothing bad happens if you do not explain immediately. You are allowed to let others sit with their questions. You are allowed to let misunderstandings exist. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Some resolve on their own. Others reveal that deeper understanding was never possible in that context. That is not a failure. You may fear that without explanation, you will be misjudged, that others will assume things about you that are untrue. This fear is understandable, especially if you have been misunderstood before. But constant explanation does not guarantee understanding, and withholding explanation does not guarantee rejection. What it can offer is relief. Relief from carrying the responsibility of being clear at all times. Relief from anticipating reactions before they occur. Relief from editing yourself mid-thought. You're allowed to speak in your own language, even if it is not immediately accessible to everyone. You are allowed to exist without a summary. Some parts of you are complex. They do not reduce easily. They do not belong in short answers. Those parts do not need to be defended. You may notice that when you stop explaining, something shifts. Your body relaxes slightly, and your thoughts move more freely. Your presence becomes less guarded. This is not withdrawal, it is honesty. Honesty about your limits, about what you are willing to offer, about what you are willing to carry. You do not owe clarity at the expense of your energy. Your energy matters. You're allowed to choose when to engage deeply and when to remain surface level. You are allowed to decide who receives access to your inner world. That decision does not need to be justified. You are not withholding yourself when you stop explaining. You are protecting your integrity. There is a difference between being open and being exposed. Explanation often moves you toward exposure. You are allowed to choose openness instead. Selective, intentional, grounded. You do not need to defend the shape of your thoughts. You do not need to justify your needs. You do not need to convince anyone that your experience is valid. It already is. You are allowed to exist without commentary, without translation, without constant clarification. You do not have to explain yourself to be allowed to be here.